Okay. Alright. Because I'm basically doing a left join. You'll have to just PM me the link. Because you'll get toasted. No, links are not permitted. So I need to do a left join, but I need... Okay, it needs to be and... Or... I guess, is it b.key? Is null or something? Let me see. Inner join if exists SQL is what I need. So what has to happen here is it's basically inner join on this, or if it doesn't exist. Is that what we need? So you're saying if you do an inner join where the user ID equals this, well, I'm not seeing where you're inserting if the greater than sort of thing, because you've got your high scores and everything else. To see what we insert all these scores in here, create this, select from. You're inner joining on the user stats, Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure. I mean, I guess if you're saying line 49 needs to be like, and, user stats value is greater than, or something like that. I've also never used SQL Fiddle. But if I, yeah, I mean, if I was just writing to the end of it regardless, and then, you know, it didn't, and then we only take the greatest one later, then I would do that, but I'd have to do like a vacuum step and everything else. So I'm not exactly sure if that helps. Yeah, I get that, but that's not how any of my stuff is set up, so it doesn't really, like, sure, it's a different way of doing the stats, but that's not how this stats system is set up. So I'm not changing the whole system just for that. Just because I'm having trouble writing one query, right? You know, the only thing here is that the only thing left here is I want to make sure that the inner join I want to select A if B doesn't exist. And I don't think is that an inner join, or I think it's a left join. Select from table A, left join table B on A's key where B dot key is null. I mean, it's basically where B not exists, but I don't know if I can do that. It's Yeah, well, pretty much I learned best by doing things wrong and then picking up new skills and everything else. So, in some respects, it's also pretty valuable to me if I just completely fuck this thing up and write a system that dies horribly. And then it'll be like, all right, so I can't just do this normalized form. I need to change how I think. Now the question is this null properly handled by some of this? Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, you're not wrong. You're right. That is a system that I could use to do arbitrary queries for high score tables into a data set that continues to grow. And all I would need to do is basically prune stuff that's older than I care about, or where there's too many people, there's too many entries for a single user, and really it would only matter about, making sure the select calls order by the descending, order by time, so you only get the things that are relevant, and then all you really care about is the size of the entire table as a whole, and you just slowly destroy records that don't matter whenever the hell you feel like it. And therefore, instead of having two tables or a table for every interval, as I've got basically set up, which is basically two tables, one for kind of your stuff and then another for only your high scores in a specific thing. It would work for all of them, and you just do the unique. So it's not that you're wrong or anything. It's that I'm trying to set it up differently and all that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Just if I started last week on it, I probably would have designed it that way. Well, but I didn't, so I'm not going to start over at the moment. If it'll work, it'll work. If it doesn't, then I'll redo it. The highest quality software is the one that ships. Sometimes. Oh, I'm just an idiot. I needed to do this. I already had my where and I didn't even know. Alright, so I've got my query. Yeah. So yeah, SecVault. I'm not sure how familiar you are with how with some of the problems that EA has had. If you're referring to The Simpsons Tapped Out and how they had to redo their entire design based on their database design was trash, and when they shipped and they had to like redo the game and ship it a year later. Or if you're talking about SimCity, where their launch was absolutely abysmal, and that was basically because they used SQS queues for everything, and that completely screwed their architecture up. But at EA, their database stuff, as far as I understand, wasn't that hasn't been like it's usually been their not that they have like complex joins and queries and shit like that. It's usually been real basic crap that they've screwed up on. Like I think Simpsons Tapped Out had like they were basically writing to a master and reading from a read slave, and the read slave would get behind the master, and then they would be updating the data on the master with data they read from the read slave. So they'd be like, reading old data, modifying it, saving it to the master, which replicated to the read slave and blew up all their crap. And like they had to. Yeah, it's true. So I think you're right. The thing that I'm kind of going on right now is with this game as it is, it's not like we're gonna have 2 million people show up tomorrow. So we'll ship the stat system and all that stuff, and as we get more people. And I can also do some load testing on it and mess around with it, and I'll test it out. And if the answer is I need to go back to designing the stats table and, you know, do a bit more of classical, you know, append-only data table. And the thing that needs to really happen is, instead of having all these complex inserts and replaces and shit like that, really what needs to happen is I need to use my select statements properly, because it's much easier to just select the correct data than it is to maintain the database in form as exactly I want it. So, but yeah. Anyway, you know, I'm saying thanks for your help. So, you know, I definitely appreciate it. And if you think I'm getting offended or pissed off, or yeah, backseat database administrator, I don't give a fuck. Fun times. All right. So, I think I've got it. So my query is actually going to look like this. Replace into user history, where it's just going to be replace into user history, select a.account ID. What is our user history? Okay, so we're replacing into this guy. It's going to start with account ID. So I'm not exactly sure where. All right, so select from this, from user stats. Do we do where? Let's see, account ID equals 1? Or is it okay? So yeah, okay, this is, I have to get this all straight in my head. So this is going to be from user results as a left join on result history on a.account ID equals a.account ID left join result history as b on A dot account ID equals that, and B dot result context. So this is also going to be B dot, yeah, okay, so result name needs to be this. So we'll match the account ID, result context, the result name, and then we do where A dot stat value is greater than B dot stat value, and B dot interval context equals this, and B dot interval ID equals question mark. We can actually get rid of this interval context here. We just need interval ID. And then we need to do an AND of A dot transaction ID equals this or dot dot dot. So that's what we have to do, is that's the query. So what this is going to do is, I'm not sure how efficient that is in the database, but basically we're going to select all the stuff that exists here, and then it's going to join on the history stuff that happens, then it's going to compare them, and then it's going to insert into the appropriate database with what we got. So as long as this is not an inner join, this is a left join. As long as the join process of comparing these guys isn't too awful, because the result history has got account ID, result context, interval ID, result name. All those are part of the primary key. I mean, you could always do like an index on exactly those things or something, maybe. I don't fucking know. Anyway, I think this will work, so why don't we just try it? So replace into results history, select A dot account ID, A dot result context, so interval context, then interval ID, and then A dot result name, A dot creation time, A dot result, A dot stat value, A dot duration, from results as A, left join results hist as B on need the result context. This will be result name. All right, so we're gonna do where. A dot stat value. Thank you for following, Wretched. I think you hosted earlier. Thanks for following. I assume you're heading out, so have a good one. All right, so we'll do the stat value on A is greater than B dot stat value. And B dot, what is this going to be, the interval ID? This will be user history of our names. We need the interval ID. That's going to equal question mark. And okay, so we've got that whole big thing. So we're going to go through every one of these dudes. And we're basically saying the result ID, so this will be A dot result ID equals question mark. So that'll do all that. It's a big mess. And this is definitely not going to be a simple database call. This is going to need to be a WD customized DB query. All right. So for filling out our parameters, the first parameter is going to be what the I mean, we don't actually need to have the interval ID specified like this. We actually can just already know it. So we don't have to put it in the prepared statement. If we don't need to, we trust this piece of information because we controlled it. We read it from the database. So the only question marks are going to be the result IDs. So that's it. Hooray! We have successfully created a monster. Cool, so these things will not select all the bullshit. It'll do that thing, and it should work. Awesome. So, what about the replace into the stats? So, I mean, we're assuming that your stats are always interesting. I think I have the stuff for the report stats wrong. Let me think. So the report stats are going to write the stats like these are always the highest, but we're not going to go back and write to. We're not resetting your values. So we're taking your high score. We're not ever resetting the stats though, so like results are different. Results are like as they come in, we do the thing. The stats are actually completely separate. So this like replace into doesn't make any sense because we're just replacing into all of our intervals the same damn number every single time. It's just not gonna. What we want to do is we're doing the opposite. Like we should be doing the exact same calls that we did before for these guys. Hello, it's your boy Cav. How's it going? Alright, so you went Java 1 to a university. You still feel like I have no command over Java. How do I improve? Don't want to do Code Academy or stuff like that. Well, it depends on what you want to do with Java. is there a specific skill set in Java that you are looking to improve upon, or are you just saying basically, how do I get better with Java data structures? Because if it's just Java data structures, then your problem probably isn't Java data structures. Your problem is probably just data structures. So in that case, I would just pick whatever language you're messing with and try to go make something with it. And it doesn't have to be Java. It could be anything. Just try to make a simple program, and kind of by using the data structures, you'll probably understand them better. So if you're using Java and you want to do something with data structures, and you don't want to do like some Code Academy, you don't want to do like a bunch of history assignments and like build your own linked list and build your own hash map or something else, and you want to understand how to use them. I mean, I guess that's another thing. Do you want to understand how they work, or do you want to understand how they use them? Because the best way to understand how they work is to just write your own, linked list, hash map, and every other data structure, set and array and all that, like dynamically sized array. Just go write your own. Otherwise, if it's just to kind of know how to use the existing data structures, the best thing would be just write a small application that starts using them. So I mean, if you don't want to do like Code Academy or something, basically your assignments for understanding how to write those things out would basically be just start writing. Just you don't need some like big fancy lessons to be like, well, write a dynamically sizing array for something. Just go write your own class that does a really horrible, naive implementation of it, and you'll probably learn a hell of a lot from just doing that. Especially if you don't want to pay somebody. Recursion, on the other hand, usually what you want to do with recursion is do something with maps and trees. So try to make like a tree data structure or something else like that, and then try to like search over it for, do like depth first search and breadth first search, like algorithms, like find the highest thing inside of an unbalanced tree or a balanced tree or something, and you can nicely go down a tree as like a linked list of nodes, and that'll probably help you out with recursion. So the issue that I have with this stat stuff is that I'm setting the values. Now, almost everything's going to be an adjustment. So if I'm setting these values for all of these intervals, like I should just be inserting, replacing into these things for these guys. So that's fine, but the issue is the adjustments. I should be setting this, the adjustments should be counting up from whatever's in the database for the other stuff. You want to make a project from scratch like at a university. You don't have access to that kind of project. Well, I mean, the reason you go to college is to learn those data structures. That's like, in my experience in the industry, the self-taught engineers are the weakest engineers with data structures. Usually people who graduate from college with a CS degree, they have a pretty good command of data structures, but they might be a little weak in actually getting projects done because they're used to just doing assignments instead of like big ass projects like game projects. And the kind of the homeschooled engineer usually is very good at the big projects and is pretty weak on data structures. So I'm not really sure. Like if you're not going to do like a class sort of thing and you don't have access to it, you're basically asking for how do you get good lessons and all that stuff. And it's like, well, the best way is to go to college or do a university thing. And if the problem is, well, I don't have money to do that, the other thing would be to find somebody who is and get their access credentials for their homework or something and ask for a copy of it. Otherwise, just look online for good lessons. Go email the professor and be like, hey, dude, I don't have money. Give me the lesson plan. Because I think most people are usually by nature helpful, and as long as you're not making more work for them, like as long as they don't have to grade your shit or whatever, usually a lot of that stuff, I would imagine, you could convince people to part with a few good assignments. But yeah, I would just just write your own of each one. Just get a list of data structures and just start trying to make your own of them and have fun with that. Java's kind of a shitty language for some of that, but it works. All right, so the issue is with the stats history stuff, I want to do adjusts, and the issue with these is basically our stats storage is just an all-time thing, and our daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal stats are like that. The other way that I could make the stats work here is I could go to 0. Of course, as somebody was saying earlier, otherwise I could just do a sum on the stats that I write with a date range, and that would give me an intervals for like a daily stats. Is just like grab all this and sum it up for that specific stat. But really, I can just I can do a set in here. Alright, so I think I just need these sets here. I made you a thing to maybe make my life easier. Well, you can PM me then if you would like. What is this? Oh, it's just like a thing to help out with yeah, you're basically saying I'm tired of you writing a whole bunch of stupid ass shit by hand. Hey, why don't you use like some string util so you don't have to write so much stupid ass code in order to actually express your database terms? Makes sense. It makes sense. All right. I'll think about it. I'll think about doing things in a little bit more clever way. I'm usually not a fan of. Um, Thank you, the one and only Tim. Congratulations on cheering me, to me, or to you. Um, I'm usually not a fan of making things kind of hiding the implementation of what's actually going on inside of things like field list. In your example, or whatever, like I can show a bit of this, but it's basically saying use data structures to help you out to format all this. I usually try not to do that because I like the code that is straight on the page that you're looking at to be everything if possible. So you're not like having to go in and like, well, what the fuck does this projectable thing do? I don't remember exactly what it does, but most of the time it doesn't matter. I tend to reject things that I don't feel comfortable with, just because I'm an idiot. Alright, so I was looking at, I can set the sets inside of these things, but it's the adjusts I'll have to do another thing on, so. This is stats list user stat. I mean, I could just do a replace here for this thing. So where are our sets? Yeah, like literally all I have to do here is just like replace batch into user stats sort of shit. All right, Jeff, thanks for stopping by. My cleverness threshold is much lower than most people's. Like, that's how it works. 7:30 p.m. Yeah. Well, it's almost midnight over here. Alright, so I just need to basically grab these dudes here. And history adjust, we'll add that in there. Well, I tried. Good night, everybody. All right. Thank you for your input. And I may decide not to be such a stick and try messing around with some of that stuff in the future. It's more of like I was pretty much on all the projects I worked on. I was kind of the team lead or something, and everybody always has new ideas for everything, right? Like everybody's always there's this new thing, and if you always tried everything that people come and tell you about, you just everything is fucked up all the time. And everything changes all the time. So you end up, if you're running a team or something, somebody comes up with an idea and you're just like, no. You just immediately, like, you don't even think about it. You're just, the mental barrier goes up. You're just like, I don't fucking care. Like, sure, great plan, buddy. Are you going to do it? Oh, you want me to do something different? Oh, yeah, that's great. I'll get right on not doing that. So, so sorry if I'm a bit of a pain in the ass there. But hopefully you can at least understand a bit of where my salt mine has been created from. Okay, we'll start off, we'll do the history sets, so that'll set all of our active intervals, and we're good to go there. So what we need to do now is we need to adjust all of the stats that exist inside of the stats history database for our interval. So how do we do that on the previous one? And let's see if I actually need to do this temporary table bullshit, or if I can just do an inner join like I already was. So it's like replace into this thing, coalesce on it from temple left join, temp table. Yeah, so they're completely new things is what I was having problems with. So pretty much the issue was that I needed to not update them, and I needed to... Yeah, okay, so we need to do the same thing all over again. So pretty much I can get rid of all this stuff because it was wrong, because I'm stupid.